SOIC and SOT, the Microchips, by Jeffery C. Dunnihoo. The warehouse. SOIC and SOT had never talked, but they had seen each other through the plastic tape that kept them safe in their reels. They looked very strange, like little square bugs and beetles with plastic bodies and tiny metal legs. These microchips lived in boxes in a big warehouse which had been very quiet lately. There were thousands of microchips in nearby boxes too, but SOIC and SOT didn't know about them. Sometimes they wondered what the world would look like outside of their boxes, but there was no way to see because their boxes had always been sealed tight. SOIC and the rest of his brothers and sisters were the only 1 month old, and their houses kept them warm and dry and safe in their neighborhood rills. SOIC wanted to talk to SOT in the next rill, but he didn't know how. SOT felt lonely too. Moving day. Then one day, SOIC's box shook terribly. The noise outside the box had been louder lately, and SOIC could hear shouts and whirring and buzzing outside like they had never heard before. SOIC was bounced and jerked around inside his box, and he tried to see SOT, but her reel had moved, so he couldn't see her anymore. Where were we going? Thought SOIC. He knew how to think, but still couldn't talk. He wondered if he would ever see SOT again. Actually, SOT's reel had only shifted a tiny bit. It was just a short distance away for a human, but it seemed like miles for a tiny microchip. The next thing SOT knew, a knife lopped off the top of her box, and she suddenly could see all sorts of strange and wonderful things she had never seen before in her life. She had no idea where she was, and the other microchips in her box were very frightened at this sudden change. SOIC's reel was placed on a cart with SOT's reel and pushed towards a large machine on the assembly line. SOIC could see huge squishy creatures with odd-looking faces and puffy bags on top. He learned later that these were humans. The machines around him were so much larger than the small box which had been his home for so long. SOIC thought he could remember some large machines like this when he was born, but he was such a tiny microchip and his memory was fuzzy. A whir and a sudden chunk, chunk, chunk started soon, and the big machine started picking up his brothers one at a time and carrying them off into the distance. SOIC was very scared. Then came SOIC's turn. The big machine pulled back his tape covers and reached in fast but very gently and picked him up off his reel. Before SOIC could dare open his eyes and look, the machine placed his feet gently down in tiny drops of gray goop on a circuit board. There were all types of microchips around him he had never seen before. New friends. These chips were all very different from SOIC. Some were yellow plastic, some had metal bodies, and some had golden legs. Once everyone was in place, the big machine sent their board down in the assembly line. SOIC could see the next machine, a refloy oven, up ahead. It looked like it was going to eat them all with its huge mouth. The machine's glowing bellies slowly began to warm SOIC and the chips around him. The great goop turned silvery and smooth. This made SOIC's legs feel very good, like a bubbly hot tub. After cooling down, they were sent off again to another trip. SOIC was closed in another box by one of the squishy monsters. This time, it was a plastic box and it was screwed together tight. After the quick, wild ride through the assembly line, it was now dark again. But SOIC was sad because he didn't know any of the new strange microchips around him and still didn't know how to talk to any of them. Pop quiz. Suddenly, he felt the tingle of electricity. He heard a bunch of voices telling him what to do and asking him questions. It was his first test. He answered the best he could. He wasn't sure if he was talking or thinking the answers, but other chips around him answered through the circuit board. Just as quickly, all went dark. Now his new box started to move again. But where to now? Electricity. Many, many days later, his new plastic box home moved to a new place, and then everything changed when the electricity started to flow. This was a feeling like the voices shouting his first pop quiz, but even more exciting and beautiful. Hey, Dad, can you print my birthday party invitations? ACK USB, ready printer. Your code is PD247G. Please verify. Other chips could hear him, and he could hear millions of voices singing all at once, and now he understood them all. SOIC started doing things that he didn't even know he knew how to do. He counted and added numbers and talked about talking. SOIC could hear voices from all over the circuit board, and they told him stories that they were hearing from outside the box through something called the network. A new reality closer to move out, byte, shul, racks, ox, move, rooks, roared. Search plane tickets to Cozumel, July 1st. Hi there, how are you doing? Could you please send me a SOIC felt good about himself, like he found his home. SOIC knew this was what he was born to do, but SOIC still missed his first friend, SOT. He wondered what had happened to her, and then one day he got a message from her. SOT was working in a box called a printer, and they talked and talked. SOT told SOIC she remembered that her reel had been picked up not long before SOIC and that she was also very scared. She went through the same kinds of machines and then on a very bumpy ride until she sat on a shelf in a store, until someone bought her box to this new place. SOT and SOIC talked to each other every day and met new microchips over the network, and they hummed happily ever after, calculating and talking and remember things and just doing what microchips do.